Just for your information, we are recording this morning, so we will send a link out later if you wanted to share it with your teams. If anyone has an issue with being recorded, you're more than welcome to obviously turn your videos off, etc. Great. Okay, I think we'll get started. So good morning, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this morning, which is social media as a professional influencing tool. And this is by a wonderful Jess Sainsbury. First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Lucy Brown. I'm the Director of Nursing and Deputy Director of the Academy at Florence Nightingale Foundation. And it's an absolute pleasure to host today to work alongside my colleague Jess. Jess is our Research and Policy Assistant and also our Student Council Lead. And Jess, I'm sorry to embarrass you, but I am going to. We're very, very proud of her. Jess has been nominated for a Student Nursing Times Award for her amazing work on supporting paid student placements through the pandemic. Yes, absolutely, Denise. A massive round of applause. So we're all keeping our fingers crossed for you, Jess. Incredible work, incredible work. Just to let you know, if you have any questions as we go through the webinar this morning, please do pop it in the chat box and I can ask it on your behalf at the end. Equally, if you want to ask any questions, we'll take it at the end. So just pop your hand up and I can help and support with that as well. So thank you so much. Sarah, lovely to get the round of applause as well. Thank you there. So without further ado, I'm going to hand across to Jess, who's got a really action-packed webinar for us. Over to you, Jess. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lucy, and good morning, everyone. Oh my goodness, I'm really excited, but I'm also nervous every time I try and share my screen. So fingers crossed, this is going to go okay. Here we go. Lucy, can we see the screen? Yeah.
Yes, we can, Jess.
Right, step one.
So there you go, that's first step done.
Excellent. Right, before we get started and I introduce myself properly, we will be doing a bit of interactive stuff during this session. So if you've got another tab, I know a couple of you have joined on your phone, so if that's too difficult to switch between, don't worry, we'll monitor the chat as well. But if you open up another tab, visit Slido, the link's on there, and I think Lucy's going to potentially drop it in the chat as well for you. And there is a code there as well, which is 985847. We'll just, throughout the session, there'll be a couple of polls that will push out. We're going to make a pretty word cloud. It's going to be amazing. I can't wait. But it's just a way to kind of gauge what's going on with you all. Okay, so during this session, we are going to try to understand how to utilise social networking sites as a healthcare professional by contributing to Nurse Twitter. There are other social media sites available and platforms, and I will touch on a couple of those as well. But just so you're aware, the main one that we're going to talk about today is Twitter. So a bit about me. Oh my goodness. So that's me in my uniform, which I love. Hi everyone, my name's Jess. I am employed by Solent NHS Trust. So we're a community trust that's based along the south coast of England. We kind of span the M27, Southampton, Portsmouth way. And my role there was as a developing educator in practice. So I worked in that team a few days a week, and then the other few days a week I worked clinically in older people's mental health in the community, which I absolutely loved. Oh my goodness. But as Lucy said, I'm part of Team F&F at the moment. So I've been seconded to the foundation primarily to lead on the Student Council's programme, which I'd love to tell you more about, but this is about social media. But if anyone does want to know more about that, please do get in touch. Something I do like to share when I introduce myself is that I like to now call myself a bit of an activist within the RCN. Now, if you had said the word activist to me as a first year student nurse, I would have said, no way, not at all. That's not my style. I don't like waving flags and banners and things like that. But what I've been supported to realise is that you can be an activist and an advocate for nursing without doing all of that kind of flag waving, although there's nothing wrong with a bit of flag waving if that's your style. But what I did as a student was I got really involved. As Lucy said, I was on the RCN Students Committee and I supported the student response to COVID, was probably one of the biggies. But amongst other things, you know, I've helped other student nurses get more involved and just seek out opportunities and put their hands up for things, because why not? You know, there's so much we can do as students and early career nurses. So I'm still involved in the RCN, even though I'm no longer a student. So I'm currently the co-lead of the RCN's newly registered nurses network. So we're a peer support network, primarily based online, although we're kind of dipping our toes into a couple of research projects as well, which is very exciting about, interventions for newly registered nurses. Now, a bit of a curveball on there, but it does make sense as the session goes on. Later on, I'm going to talk to you and encourage you to think about, what's your niche? What are your passions? So one of mine is clinical supervision. So at FNF, I chair our subject expert group for clinical supervision, and alongside others, we've brought together experts, and our aim is to make clinical supervision common practice within all fields of nursing. So if you want to know more about that, then please get in touch. Right, enough about me. I feel like I've whittled on enough there. So we are going to start and go straight into Slido. So for those of you who are able to, I'm going to push out a little multiple choice at you. But for those of you who are on your phones, if you are able to access the chat function in Zoom, then please do. But my first question is, do you currently use social media and openly identify as a nurse? So by that, it might be in your bio. It might, you might tweet about things or share things on Instagram to do with nursing, or you might not use social media at all, and that's absolutely fine. So I'd love to hear from you on that. Great. So far, have we got anything in the chat, Lucy? No. So you're on mute, Lucy. I can see you talking.
I am. There you go. I was talking. Thank you very much for that. So midwives count. Some people have said, "Oh, apologies, I'm on the phone today." They use it a little. Absolutely use Twitter. So quite a few Twitter advocates amongst the group today, which is great.
Yes. Sorry, I should have put nurse or midwife, of course, or student or nursing associate. Lovely. Okay, so we've got about 88% is a yes, and we've got a few that's no. So that's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. That helps me know how to kind of pitch this to you. Right, stay on Slido or stay in the chat. So we've got one more coming out you now. So we're going to create a word cloud. So in one word, can you tell me what you believe the benefits of using social media as a nurse, a midwife, as a healthcare professional could be? So I'm going to push that out to you now. So we've got reach, connectability, connections, learning, sharing knowledge, support, celebrating. Oh, I love this. This is going to be a really cute word cloud.
In the chat box, Jess, we've got very similar: connecting, networking, updating information, sharing knowledge, highlighting nursing issues to the public, connecting with other healthcare professionals. Great. This is really good.
That's really good. Thank you so much, everyone. So I think you can see that now. Lovely. So what I'll do after this session is I'll share this on Twitter and Instagram. I'll pop it on the FNF ones if anyone's interested in seeing our word cloud from today. Right. Okay, here we go. Let's do some chatting. So these slides are going to be circulated with you all afterwards. I am aware I've been a bit wordy. So I'm going to pitch this session for those of you who may not use social media professionally. But if you are a pro, please do pitch in with any top tips, suggestions. Lucy's going to keep an eye on the chat for us. And if anyone, if you want to interrupt me, that's fine. I'm not precious at all. So I started doing these sessions when I was a student nurse myself. Because I vividly remember being sat in the university induction way back when in 2016, and basically being told that I shouldn't use social media and identify as a student nurse, because we'll just post silly things of us at freshers or drinking, and we'd be struck off before we even joined the register. So it was a very kind of scaremongering approach to social media. And this happens, I think, in quite a lot of places, although that culture is kind of changing now. But, as nurses or midwives, we are trained to think critically. So, of course, I did challenge this eventually, and it led to the university saying, OK, right, let's do some teaching sessions on this and support people to use social media professionally, which is great. So now we do it all over the shop now. Now, the reason why I think that nurses, midwives, healthcare professionals should use social media and identify as their profession as well is because the digital age of healthcare is upon us. As we know, a lot of our patient systems and tools we use in practice are going digital as well. So why aren't we doing that so much for ourselves to advocate for our profession, to help with recruitment and retention, and to have that kind of warm feeling of community? And I really think that it would be good that we should kind of embrace it, obviously within our own personal, what we're comfortable with. You may look at some people and think they use social media all of the time. I could never do that. That's fine. It's kind of it's not one size fits all. It's each to their own. Now, the boring bit, what I always say to everyone when I do these sessions is we do need to think about the NMC Code of Conduct as well. So they have very handy social media, like online PDF, and it's just a few pages and it links into the code, and it really shows you, you know, those questions that you may have or those hesitations. It kind of helps you to just have a think about how you might use social media and still identify as a nurse. Now, the next stage is, so you've done that, you've looked at the NMC guidelines and you think, great, okay, I can totally do this. The next thing is there will be local guidelines and policies. It may not be a whole policy on social media, but it will be something to do with comms and media, those kind of things. And for students, because I think there may or may not be some students in this session, you've got to think about the trusts that you're on placement with, but also the university guidelines as well, and they may be different. I would really encourage all of you, if you haven't already, to check out your local policies, because sometimes they can be a bit, there could be room for improvement, shall we say, and there's nothing wrong with you flagging that with the policy owner as well. So, for example, within the trust that I am part of, I checked out the policy before I started my paid placement with them last year, and I challenged a couple of things in there. We had a discussion with the comms team, and then they did update it. So there are things that you can influence with that. Now, I've listed a few platforms on there. There are other platforms available, but these four, I say, would be the big four when it comes to social media generally. So the one that we're going to focus on today is mainly with Twitter. So Twitter, you have a character limit on it. So it's kind of short, sharp tweets that come out. But a real, oh, sorry, Lucy, did you want to jump in now?
Yeah, just someone's mentioned about YouTube. I thought it might be useful for you.
Yes.
Just YouTube included. Yeah.
Yes, YouTube as well. That's counted as social media platform. And if anyone's got any suggestions for channels to follow, one of which is Claire Carmichael, I would completely encourage you to follow her. Please do drop those in the chat. So yeah, going back to Twitter, one of the big things with Twitter is that you can count some of your Twitter activity in your continuing professional development for revalidation. And some people don't actually know this. So if you participate in what we call a tweet chat, I'm hoping there may be a couple of people here who know what a tweet chat is. So if you do, please let us know in the comments. But if you participate in a tweet chat and then you do a reflection afterwards, you can count that towards some of your hours for revalidation. Now, you can't use obviously 35 tweet chats for 35 hours. That's not how it works. But it's just another way, especially with the ongoing pandemic, a way that you can quite easily use something for revalidation. Instagram, I've popped that on there. So personally, I've only dipped my toe in Instagram over the last probably year or so. So I attended a We Are the NHS social media training, and a lot of people, I'm not going to say the youngsters because there are other people like my age and above who use it as well. It's more of a kind of a warm hug type community. But what's happening over there for nurse and midwife and nursing associate Instagram is people are sharing more kind of like day in the life videos and stories. It's more to do with the images, and people are doing what we call reels, so quick, short, sharp videos, and it may be something political, it may be something just for fun, it may be something educational, but it's a different way because different people like using different platforms and ways of engaging. So Instagram's more of the kind of, I guess. Facebook. So a lot of people don't use Facebook anymore, I've been told. I personally mainly use it to keep in touch with my family and friends, and primarily I don't use it for nursing. However, there are a lot of closed groups on Facebook that people engage with as a nurse, midwife, nursing associate. So yeah, it's just something to flag so you can have that kind of more in-depth conversation with people, and perhaps link in with other specialist nurses or midwives, and, you know, share best practice, those kind of things in those groups. And finally, the last one on this slide is TikTok. So I'm smiling because my son, my 12-year-old son, tells me that I should take this off because it's so uncool, mum. And why on earth are you talking about TikTok? You don't even use it yourself. So I must admit, as a nurse, I do not use TikTok, but that doesn't mean that it's not a good tool. It can be used in a really educational and useful way as well. There are some people who are absolutely smashing using TikTok, and you know, just sharing kind of day in the life of those kind of things, and more comical nursing or midwifery posts as well. But it's good for awareness building is what I'm trying to say. So other tools of note, one of you've already said about YouTube. So there are like longer videos on there. We at F&F share videos on our YouTube as well. And I know, you know, RCN shares videos. All of the webinars that I did last year through RCN students are on there, and it's great. And that's another way of raising the profile of the profession. But for those of you who do use social media, there are scheduling tools as well, such as Hootsuite or TweetDeck, things like that. So much to, honestly, I'm not on social media all the time. I am quite reliant on these tools where I can schedule tweets in advance. So I'm still putting content out there, but I'm not physically attached to my phone or my laptop. And there may be things, you know, to do with work that you might want to share that isn't, you don't need to share it right now, but you could pop something out for in a couple of weeks' time. And then, you know, you've got that kind of steady flow of content coming out of your account for people to see. The other one I wanted to mention as well, it's not necessarily a platform, but later on I'm going to talk to you about kind of peer support, and WhatsApp is a great way of keeping in touch with peers and colleagues as well, and just having that additional support, especially at the moment during COVID. And finally, there's Canva. So Canva is a way of creating graphics. So I was talking about Instagram earlier and how that's more kind of a visual tool. Canva has a lot of kind of templates and things, and you don't have to be kind of graphically minded at all. Like, I'm not that way inclined, but I use Canva a lot for things like that. So before I move on, if anyone has any kind of preferred platforms or tools that they use, I'd love to hear about it in the chat so that we can make sure we kind of change these sessions slightly for future to maybe not focus so much on Twitter. So please do let me know.
There's some interesting, so I class myself in the oldie category as well, Denise, if that makes you feel better. And I still use Facebook. And don't forget, I'm a paediatric nurse too, and don't forget the Bubbles is a really good site on there. Lots of really good tips. So that's in the chat as well. So I agree with that one. Also talking about podcasts that people use. And Adobe Spark apparently is very good. That's a new one. I've not heard of that one before. You're nodding, Jess, good, because you're our guru. TweetDecks as well. So they're a really great idea to follow. So that Becky's only just discovered those. So good call there. And that's all from the chat box.
Lovely. Thanks, Lucy. Thanks, everyone. So moving on to networking. So now more than ever, I know I keep mentioning COVID, but it is important. Social media is an excellent tool for networking with others where we may not necessarily have, you know, conferences to go to or be able to move across sites. It's just a way of keeping connected with others. And, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So I've used my social media in the past and now to have conversations with nursing leaders who I may never have had access to before. So an example of that is in my maybe first or second year as a student, I had an interaction on Twitter with the then Chief Nursing Officer for England at the time, Jane Cummings. And a few months later, I attended an event and she was there amongst other people. But because I had that interaction with her online, it gave me the confidence to go and introduce myself to her. Now, she didn't remember who I was. Of course she didn't, it was just an interaction on Twitter, but it was more for me, I may not have taken that step to do it before. So for those of you who are more established nurses, leaders, those interactions with more junior nurses or students can really make that much of a difference to them. So please don't think, oh, I'm just having a chat with someone online. It can really, really help us. Okay, sorry, I kind of went off on a bit of a tangent then. So there are personal and professional networking benefits as well, but looking at it from a different perspective, so not that kind of student and early career lens that I personally have. So for those of you who are more established nurses and leaders, interacting with students and early career nurses makes you more accessible. And feel a bit more human. I mean, we know you're not robots, of course you're not, but it really does help with that. So the thing with social media is, as much as, within our organizations, we try to make sure we've got a good organizational culture and we don't want it to be hierarchical, it can be sometimes, or it can be perceived to be that way. So by interacting with others, it breaks down those hierarchies on social media. Everyone's got a profile, or, all the people that are on there have got a profile. And you may say, I'm the chief nurse of this, or, head of whatever, but it's like a level playing field. And it is an opportunity for you to, showcase your authentic leadership skills and show us all how it can be done. There are also, something I like to mention is there are lots and lots of students and early career nurses who are seeking out reverse mentoring opportunities. And by connecting with them on social media, that's a way of kind of linking in with them and finding someone. So please, be open to opportunities like that, because it could only be, an hour or half an hour every 6 weeks or so, but it can make a huge impact on that, more junior member of staff. Social media is a way to share your voice, your story, your why. But what I do like to say to people is, don't get sucked into the numbers of followers, the numbers of replies, things like that. You could do an Instagram story, as an example, and have 20 viewers. So in the scheme of things, that's not a lot of people. However, what you are saying on that Instagram story may have a significant impact on one person. They may be having a really bad day and you've kind of helped lift them or keep them within the profession. So please don't pay too much attention to those numbers. It's more about the quality of the interaction than the quantity of the people that are following you or viewing your posts. A tip that I do include is that I would really encourage you to take care of your profile. And what I mean by that is have a profile picture. It doesn't have to be a picture of yourself. I know a lot of people don't want their face on their social media. That's fine. It could be an object, or your pet, your dog, something like that. Just something, so it's not that kind of outline that is the default when you set up a profile. The other thing to think about is making sure that your bio is relevant and up to date. It doesn't have to be your CV or anything like that, but just a bit about you, what you're about would be really helpful. As a rule, I guess, well, maybe not a rule, but what I personally do, when I follow back more or less everyone who follows me on social media, but if they don't have a profile, that kind of makes, or a bio, sorry, that kind of makes me hesitate a bit that they might be a bot or a troll or something like that. So definitely take care of your bio. An additional benefit, which go to this video and I really hope it works, is that it keeps you in touch with others and it really helps keep you connected, and it helps you find your people on social media, is something that me and my people like to say. And we've spoken about Facebook briefly, but you may meet these amazing healthcare professionals and want to stay connected to them, but they might not quite make your Facebook friends list if you're using it for friends and family. So using other platforms such as Twitter is a way to keep connected with others. Another good one's LinkedIn that I haven't mentioned. So with those people that you might not necessarily want on your Facebook friends list. So what I'm going to do next is, we've got a couple of minutes video and I'm going to hand over to my people to tell you what they think the benefits are of social media.
Hi everyone, my name's Claire. Jess has asked me to explain why finding your people, having a network, is important. For me, as a newly registered nurse, there's loads of reasons, and I have loads of support face-to-face and online. But one of the biggest things in the pandemic is I'm working from home as a community nurse, and having that support network has allowed me to find somewhere that I can talk things through, have kind of informal supervision and a chance to reflect without bringing it straight into my living room. It's helped keep me balanced, and it's given people who will challenge me and help me to move forwards. It's one of the biggest things that everyone can do. I say it all the time, but find your people.
My peers at uni, so the people that I've actually met, were brilliant at providing support on local issues, and we saw each other every day, and that was brilliant. The peers support network that I built up through social media was also really useful because they're from different walks of life, different regions and different fields of nursing, and they provide a much broader perspective on issues, and they bring something a little bit different to the party. And it also helps you realise that people all over are having very similar issues to you, and there can be something really comforting about that.
Hi, my name's Molly and I'm a final year student mental health nurse at De Montfort University in Leicester. So my nursing journey has been emphasised by the support network that I've been able to build from using social media, Twitter in particular. I think student nurses, we're not like normal students. We haven't got the kind of luxury of lots of time off, annual leave, and things like that. So I think for us it's really important to make sure that we have like a group of people that we can turn to who understand what we're going through. And for me, Twitter has been a big part. Twitter's played a massive role. I started a blog called The Pint-Sized Student Nurse purely from seeing other student nurses on Twitter and being inspired by them, Jess being one of them. So for me, I think my advice would be for student nurses is to get onto Twitter, make sure you are kind of aware with the use of social media and the NMC guidelines, which I'm sure you will, and just start connecting, start networking, build up your support network, so then if you do feel like you need to reach out to someone, you can. So yeah, enjoy.
Reaching out and having that strong peer support network helped me massively, not only in terms of educational resources and hints and tips on studying, but emotionally, like reaching out and finding other people who relate to what you're going through and help you through. Can't underestimate how much that helps you through studying, when you're newly qualified, in your place of work. And so, I mean, social media is a great leveler, so you can speak to people who you perhaps wouldn't have spoken to otherwise. And I'm still in contact with a lot of the people that I formed that network with as a student, because you go through the same things in different workplaces, and it just helps massively to have other people who understand what you're going through. And I would recommend it to absolutely
I am
everybody.
going to stop it there. There are a few more, but I'm really conscious of time. But you'll get that if you want to watch the rest of them. But they are all completely awesome humans who have contributed to that video. I hope that helped, not just hearing from me telling you why social media is great to use as a healthcare professional. So because the next slide, I'm going to push out another poll to you, so get Slido ready, everyone. I wanted to quickly touch on the importance of storytelling and connection. As a student, again, the comms team at the RCN kept saying to me, Jess, you need to tell more people about your story. Storytelling is so powerful. And I was like, no, just want to get the job done. Thanks very much. I'm not, interested in sharing my deepest, darkest secrets. And now I'm a completely converted to it. So if you are new to social media, a post that really helps get people started is sharing your why. And what I mean by that is, why did you decide to become a nurse, midwife, nursing associate, healthcare professional? Because people are really interested, and it helps connect you to others who may have chosen the same or had the same reason. Now that picture there, that's my why. You can find out more about it on my Instagram if you do have Instagram. But my why, if you wanted to know, was I had a career beforehand, before nursing. I worked in human resources. And when I was on maternity leave with my youngest, my nan died and she received excellent care. And it was as a result of the care that she received that it made me reconsider my career, what I was doing with my professional life. I worked for an outsourcing HR company and my job was to go around and sack people. So it's a bit of a different, there are definitely transferable skills, but it is completely different. But by sharing that, that part of me, it has helped other people realize that I am, a human behind all of this. I'm quite guilty of my social media being a bit of a highlights reel sometimes. So it's just about that, being more authentic on socials as well. But I'm not encouraging you to share every single aspect of your life, and you must only share what you are comfortable with sharing. It's just some people need or are waiting for permission to share that kind of thing, but don't wait for permission. If you're comfortable with sharing those aspects of your life or your nursing journey, please do so. And the last one on there is that, on that topic, I'm not afraid to be vulnerable. So I've said that sometimes my social media has been a bit of a highlights reel. So I'm, sharing the highs and lows of my nursing journey, and I would encourage you to do so too, because not every day goes to plan, does it? Right. I've got 2 scenarios, but I'm going to skip on. No, I'm going to keep it on this one. We're going to do this one. So Zhang was alone in the staff room during their break and decided to make a TikTok video. The content of the TikTok included jokes about a psychiatric ward, and Zhang was in full uniform, including their ID badge. I would like to hear from you on whether you think that this is acceptable or unacceptable as a social media post. So if you could vote, that would be great. And if you could also let me know in the chat function why you decided to vote that way, or things that are flagging. What are red flags to you with this post? So far, I have 100% unacceptable. When I do this with students, I do put unsure, but I thought, no, I'm going to give you 2 choices. That's it.
I can read out some comments from the chat box when you're ready, Jess.
Yes, go for it, Lucy.
So everybody in the chat box again agrees it's unacceptable. Negative comments, identifiable organisation, ID badge and uniform, because obviously you're a nurse, you're bringing the profession into giving a bad image of the profession. Inappropriate content, I'm just reading on there from Sarah. Can be easily misconstrued, taken out of context, could be very damaging. Agree. So is it 7?
Yeah, you've hit the net. Sorry, my internet connection was a bit unstable then, but I've just had a check as well.
So essentially unacceptable, and it brings the nursing profession, it could damage the nursing profession, and also it's an identifiable organisation. So that's basically the themes coming through.
Yeah, so yeah, those themes are the ones that do tend to come up. Now, I know I said at the beginning I don't use TikTok, and I have nothing against TikTok, but this is actually a real example from a student, in practice. So I do like to use this one. So there are a lot of red flags here, as you've already said, but something I would like you to have a think about and maybe look at your organisation's policies on is the whole area of posting in uniform. Because I think sometimes it is okay for people to use social media and use their uniform. So examples of which could be, recruitment campaigns. It could be open days for universities. It could be relevant content, but I think it needs to be done in the right way. ID badges, generally, the advice that I tend to give student nurses is you shouldn't have your ID badge on show, and if you do, blur it out. The thing with being able to identify the organisation is if you do say in your bio that you are a nurse or midwife from Solent NHS Trust, as an example, that if people really wanted to know where you're from, they can do that quite easily. So another thing to think about. I don't think we need to go over the fact that they were making jokes in this scenario as well is just unacceptable. So yeah, thank you for engaging with that one. I would love to do the next one with you, but we just don't have enough time. I'm very conscious that I'm already running over. Sorry, Lucy.
No, I'm really enjoying it. It's great.
So I've got some top tips, if that's all right with everyone, for starting off on Twitter if you're new to it. So, and this is a real term. So start off by lurking if you don't use it already. So see how other people use it. Follow a few people relevant to, you know, what you're interested in. Follow some key accounts. I can share some accounts that I think are good. And if you've got any accounts that you think people should follow, please do drop those in the chat as well. And check out some hashtags. If you wouldn't say something to someone's face, don't say it online. There are a lot of debates that happen on Twitter, which is great because it's good to see that kind of both sides of the story with professional issues. However, sometimes it does get taken a step too far. If you are ever in that situation, it is okay to tap out of that conversation and say, I'm not responding to this anymore. Other methods that people use when they do get in that situation is there is a block function. I don't personally block people unless they're a troll, but there is a mute function. So you can mute someone so they don't show up on your timeline. You don't get notifications from them until you turn that back on without blocking them. So that is, I know I'm singing about social media, but there are some downsides to it as well. Remember that posts are permanent. So you may tweet about something and then decide, oh no, maybe I shouldn't have said that. And you may take it down seconds later. It's out there. Once it's out there, even if you delete it, someone could have screenshot it, someone could be notified of it. It's out there. So really do think about what you post before you post it. A function that I use particularly on Twitter is the drafts function. So if there's something that I think, oh, I'm not quite sure about that, I will put that tweet to drafts and then come back to it later, because then that kind of space between it and being able to come back to it is really helpful. I've already spoken to you about the social media guidance, so I'm going to skip over to that. A tip that I do like to include is try not to make it your content completely work related. So get involved with other conversations that you want to learn about and the wider nurse Twitter community. It is a global community, so definitely get involved with it. And you may not be the expert. That's okay. It's a good platform for learning. Be useful, so contribute to the community as well. So when you find interesting papers, just share them. There will be someone who will really benefit from that. And what happened last year, particularly in the first wave, was the guidance for practice was rapidly evolving. So whilst it was obviously on the right websites, people were tweeting and sharing these links as well. And that's how a lot of newly registered nurses that I've been connected with were able to keep up to date with the most up-to-date practice guidelines. And I need to tell you about fake news. There is fake news on nurse Twitter as well. Or midwife Twitter. So before you retweet something, if it's a link to something else, read it first. It really, there are things that you could potentially share that are completely false. And the last one on there is to create a hashtag for your community. So at FNF, we've got a couple, haven't we, Lucy? So the main one that I think I've been using is hashtag Team Florence. And that isn't just, the team of people that work at FNF, it's our whole community. And we do look out for tweets that are on that hashtag so that we can, follow those people, engage with them and, network with the wider Team Florence as well. So if you haven't got one for your local organisation, definitely think about starting one. So it is an extension of my CV, but what it is it includes things that I am passionate about. So like those nichey things that I was talking to you about at the start of the session. So I'm really sorry that I'm going to fly over this really quickly, but just as an example, look at other people's bios to see what kind of things they're putting on there. And something I do want to highlight to you is the link that you can include on Twitter. So that might be a link to your LinkedIn profile, or if you've got loads of things that you want to share, I use something called Linktree. So if you clicked on that, it would take you to a website that has links to all of my other social media profiles, articles that I've contributed to, blogs that I've been part of or written, and like videos and webinars, lots of different content that I would like people to see. So have a think about how you can update your bio. Now, I've spoken really quite a lot about hashtags, and sometimes people are like, I don't even know what a hashtag is, Jess, help me out. So the way that I differentiate between the two, so a hashtag is a pull. So if you use a hashtag or if you click on a hashtag, that will pull all of these tweets and information that other people have used that same hashtag for. And the opposite of pull is a push. So when you at someone, so if you go at Jess Sainsbury, that will push your content or your information, your tweet towards me. Other people will see it, but it's, you know, it's the difference between I want this information or I want to give this information. So I hope that's helpful for those of you who are brand shiny new. And then this is, I've got two more, Lucy, got two more.
It's really great.
So developing your niche. I do, as I said, I do tend to do these sessions with students, but I would really encourage you as, you know, more established nurses to think about this as well. So one of the best pieces of advice that I got given as a student was, Jess, you are doing a lot of things. You should maybe have a think about not reining that in. That's really unfair to say that, but concentrate on a few things at once. What are those, you know, up to 3 things that you're really passionate about so you can really focus on them. So what I say to students is have a think about what your passions are, what you want to share with the world, how you want to connect and network, and maybe focus on those things for like 6 months on your social media channels. And then your network will grow. You'll have really, you know, fascinating conversations with people, but you won't be overwhelmed, is what I'm trying to say as well. It won't be too much information all at once, because the thing with the internet is there is so much out there, and it can be overwhelming if you're trying to be everything to everyone. So yeah, if anyone wants to share what their passions or their niches are, it could be to do with work, it could not be to do with work, then please do drop that in the chat as well. And last but not least, self-care. I've already mentioned that I am not connected to my device 24/7, as much as it may seem that way for those of you who do follow me. I do switch off as well, and that is super important. So when you get involved with Nurse or Midwife Twitter, you will see that you want to get involved with lots of conversations, and you don't want to miss out on things. If you don't log on to your social media accounts for a day, a week, a couple of weeks, you won't miss out. It's absolutely fine. But my message is that you do not need to live and breathe your profession 24/7, because you're working in practice or wherever you work. And then, you know, you might be checking your social media when you're not on shift, and in the evening sometimes. Don't feel that you need to be switched on in some shape or form all the time. It's really important to step away from it. For those of you who don't use it, or even those of you who do use social media quite a lot, if there are certain posts, you know, I spoke about my drafts function that you're unsure about, share it with one of your peers or your colleagues and say, look, I'm thinking about interacting with this and saying this. What do you think? It can be really helpful and get that different perspective as well. And then finally, sorry to be all like sunshine and daisies, but be kind. There are a lot of trolls as well, and there is that negative side, but sometimes someone may be interacting a bit negatively, and that might be because they've got something else going on in their life. So just try and, you know, bring that positivity as much as you can, and that compassion that we have within nursing. So before we go, and as I hand over to Lucy, if you could all, or those of you who feel comfortable with, send out a tweet or an Instagram story with one key piece of information or advice that you've taken from today's session. If you include the hashtag Team Florence, we'll make sure that we pick it up as well and retweet and share it and do all of those things as well, and connect with you if we're not already connected on our social media channels. So yeah, and when you get sent this, you don't need references, so I'll give you an unreferenced list. So the NMC guidance is on there. The We communities, if you're not sure about tweet chats, for example, there's some really good step-by-step guides on how to engage with it. And the top one is I did a blog post on making the most of social media as well. So that's me done. Oh my goodness, I speak so much when I start. Lucy,
that's absolutely fantastic session, and probably the most interactive session we've had actually so far, so thank you. And there's a few comments in the chat box. Let's see if we've got any questions. Please feel free to add to the chat box if you've got any questions, or raise your hand if you'd like to ask Jess anything. There's a plug from Becky, which I love. She's saying hashtag High Five Friday, positive mindset for the weekend. So
Yeah.
we'll share that one, Becky. I really like that. Thank you. Yeah, brilliant session. Excellent from everybody. So any questions for Jess? Any questions at all? All right, I might ask a couple. Feel free to pop it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand and ask in person if you're feeling brave.
If anyone else wants to do a cheeky plug, we welcome cheeky plugs. So podcasts, all of those kind of things, please do drop them in the chat, and or tweet us and we'll share it as well. It's all about sharing, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm going to be quite honest, because I just really started using Twitter more actively the last 3-4 months. So Jess, you've been very kind in giving me some lessons in how to use it. So I always felt like I was a bit of a dinosaur before. But what was really interesting is obviously it's a really positive tool, but it can be quite negative, can't it? So what would be your tips to all of us on how to handle that?
Yeah, I think it is definitely worth acknowledging that as well. So sometimes there can be troll accounts that, especially with how health and social care is at the moment, you can just get random accounts that try and find healthcare professionals and just send horrible tweets at them. So there are a few things you can do. You can block them, especially if it is a troll. I would always say to block the trolls. There's no point in even trying to engage in it. I definitely don't. When it's another healthcare professional, you may or may not decide to respond to them or not. It's very dependent on the situation as well. And there's also the mute function, which I mentioned earlier. So you can mute notifications or a person in general, so it doesn't show up on your feed for a little while. And that is really helpful, just so that you get that space from them. But one thing I would say to try and avoid would be to not have your social media as an echo chamber. It is really important to get that kind of diverse voice and opinion and experience on there as well. So I do try to interact and follow with people that I wouldn't necessarily in real life, I guess, as well.
That's really useful, and something we can all learn from. Thank you. There's a few questions coming through in the chat box. I'm just going to ask. People are asking for your contact details. I think it was on the end of the slide deck, Becky.
Yes.
So
yes.
Jess's email's on there if you need to. So we'll share that with you, and then you can get in contact. She'd love to talk to you about student leadership, Jess. Quite new to using Twitter. This is from Sarah, a paediatric dietitian. Thanks for the useful info. So sorry, no question there. Thanks, some really lovely feedback for you there too. Any questions from anybody while we've got this opportunity with Jess? No, great. Thank you. Well, I think if no one's got any questions, we'll bring that to the end. There's Jess's contact details, and obviously mine as well. So if you need to get in contact with us, please let us know. If there's any themes for webinars you'd like to see, please do drop it in the chat box or send us an email to let us know what you'd like to hear from, because we want to make sure our webinars are always relevant. If there's any guest speakers you want to hear from, let us know as well, because we can do our best across the network to get them in you as well. So thank you for a really, really wonderful session this morning, Jess. I've thoroughly enjoyed it and learned an enormous amount. It's been great. So if there's no further questions, we'll bring the session to a close.
Thanks, everyone. Have a nice
Thanks for
afternoon.
interaction.